Just because a film is fictional doesn't mean there isn't a fascinating story behind it. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're discussing the true story behind 1917. Directed by Academy Award winner Sam Mendes, 1917 is a World War I epic that centers on two British soldiers, Lance Corporals Blake and Schofield.
Your orders are to deliver a message, calling off tomorrow morning's attack.
The two are informed by a superior officer that a British battalion is walking into a fatal trap. The Germans have retreated to the Hindenburg Line in the midst of Operation Alberich, waiting to ambush the enemy. If the attack isn't called off, the British Army will lose 1,600 brothers in arms, one of which is Blake's actual brother. Blake and Schofield thus set out to deliver this crucial message in a race against the clock, facing new dangers with every step they take across a perilous landscape. There is some historical accuracy to the film's plot. Operation Alberich really was a German military codename used to withdraw to the Hindenburg Line, a German defensive position between February 9th and March 20th, 1917. However, Blake and Schofield, as well as most of the characters they come across, did not exist. That being said, Mendes was inspired by the stories of a real-life British soldier, his grandfather, Alfred Hubert Mendes. Discussing the basis for his film on a Variety podcast, Mendes stated, quote, "I had a story that was a fragment told to me by my grandfather, who fought in the First World War. It's a story of a messenger who has a message to carry. And that's all I can say. It lodged with me as a child, this story or this fragment, and obviously I've enlarged it and changed it significantly. But it has that at its core." So what exactly is the true story at the core of 1917? The answer lies with Alfred Mendes, who was born in the southern Caribbean nation of Trinidad on November 18, 1897. In 1915, Alfred decided to join the merchants' contingents of Trinidad and fight for the British during World War I. This was met with strong disapproval from Alfred's wealthy parents, particularly his father. By January 1916, a 19-year-old Alfred had made it to England and enlisted. Serving with the 1st Rifle Brigade, Alfred was sent to Wasmont in France, close to Dieppe, where he trained as a signaler. During his time abroad, Alfred entered a romantic relationship with Lucille Sagnier, a local landlord's 18-year-old daughter. Quote, "I loved Lucille Sagnier with the ardor and passion of few other loves in my life," he wrote in his autobiography. It wouldn't be surprising if Alfred's relationship with Lucille inspired a sequence in 1917 when Schofield briefly encounters a young French woman taking care of a baby. Although Schofield is tempted to stay with the woman, he's forced to carry on with his mission. Likewise, Alfred's relationship with Lucille had effectively ended by the time he was shipped off to Belgium to fight in the Battle of Passchendaele, also known as the Third Battle of Ypres. The Battle of Passchendaele lasted 3 months from July 31st to November 10th, 1917. On October 12th, Alfred and his fellow British soldiers marched through pouring rain for Poel-Capelle, a village not far from Passchendaele Ridge. Coming under heavy fire, they soon found themselves wading through a massacre. Among the 484 men in Alfred's battalion, 158 were either killed, injured, or lost in the chaos. Given the year, setting, and countries involved, the Battle of Passchendaele could have been the main source of inspiration for the conflict depicted in Sam Mendes' film. Alfred hunkered down with the rest of his company in the crater of a shell hole. The following morning, his commanding officer, Captain Alexander Craigmile, received a message from higher up. Quote, "Should the enemy counterattack, go forward to meet him with fixed bayonets. Report on 4 companies urgently needed." When Craigmile asked for someone to seek out companies A, B, and D, Alfred volunteered. Alfred knew there was no guarantee he'd return from this task. His signaling course certainly had not prepared him for such a task.
You can't possibly make it that way, man! You bloody insane!
What's more, the rain had ceased, making it much easier for German snipers and machine gunners to spot him. Despite shots fired at him along the way, he managed to track down the other companies. In addition to locating many survivors, Alfred captured 10 German prisoners. Well, sort of. You see, Alfred was making his way past a pillbox when he encountered the German men. Rather than attacking Alfred, however, they quickly surrendered, with one actually handing over his Luger revolver. Despite numerous close calls, Alfred made it back to C Company's shell hole in one piece. For their bravery in Poel-Capelle, Craigmile received the Military Cross, and Alfred was honored with the Military Medal. Sadly, Craigmile was killed on March 24, 1918, along the Scalp River in the Hauts-de-France region. A few months later, Alfred came into contact with poison gas deployed by the Germans and was consequently returned to Britain to recoup. The war officially came to an end on November 11, 1918, and Alfred was discharged the following March. In 1950, almost 30 years later, Alfred took a train from Paris to Westmont, curious to see if he could reconnect with Lucille. Upon knocking on her door, Alfred learned that she was now married with 9 children. Lucille and her husband were gracious enough to let Alfred spend the night. Although Alfred didn't live happily ever after with Lucille, he would have 3 marriages and 3 sons following the war. Recounting his time at the Battle of Passchendaele, Alfred wrote that he had been left with, quote, "a series of hair-raising experiences that would keep my grand and great-grandchildren enthralled for nights on end." Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. One of his grandchildren was, of course, Sam Mendes, and you can definitely see how Alfred's stories impacted 1917.
The First World War starts with literally horses and carriages and ends with tanks. So it's the moment where modern war, you could argue, begins.
Much of Alfred shines through in the character of Schofield. Both Alfred and Schofield were willing to charge into dangerous missions, well aware that they may not come back alive. Both miraculously evaded certain death around every corner and saved numerous men in the process. Traces of the movie can also be found in the story that Alfred told about carrying a message across no man's land. As Sam Mendes described 1917, quote, "It's not my grandfather's story directly, but it's very much his spirit that remains alive in this movie." Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.